Hello and welcome back to another video. My name is Jake the Genealogist, and in today's video it's going to be a very special, kind of long video where we're going to be going over the 800-year history of the monarchs of Georgia. Now, you might know Georgia as being a state in the United States, but this is in fact referring to the country Georgia located in the western part of Asia. It's kind of in the northern part of the Middle East, and here's a little map of it from the historic time that we're going to be talking about in this video. And also, on the left side, I also have a timeline of the Georgian kingdom and its history, and we're going to be going over the monarchs of that today. So stay tuned for this kind of longer video where we're going to be going over a very long history of Georgia. So let's get into it now. Today we're going to be talking about unified Georgia specifically, because before 1008, which is when the Kingdom of Georgia was founded, there was a bunch of other small kingdoms that ruled over areas of Georgia, but not the whole thing in and of itself. But that all changed, where Bagrat, right here, Bagrat III, given that regnal name from a, because their previous rulers named Bagrat, actually inherited the land and the kingdoms of both Abkhazia and Iberia, and unified them together into one kingdom called the Kingdom of Georgia in 1008. And so he was the founder, therefore he's known as Bagrat the Unifier, which is kind of a cool epithet to have. And he passed the throne down to his son right here, Georgi. And after that, he passed it to his son, Bagrat IV, and it continues like this, in a father-son succession like this, all the way down to Demetrius I right here. And Demetrius I ended up actually having multiple children who ended up ruling. His eldest son, David V, who only ruled for a year, and then, secondly, Georgi III right here, and he ruled from 1155 to 1184. Now, he began what's known as the Georgian Golden Age, and that lasted all the way up until the death of his grandson right here, Georgi IV, also known as Resplendent. And during this time was a time of great prospering in the Kingdom of Georgia, and one of the best-known rulers of Georgia was his daughter, Tamar Mepe, known as the Great. And she had two kids. One was the aforementioned Georgi IV, and the other one was Rusidon. Now, they both had kids of their own, but what ended up happening is in around the 1240s, the Mongols actually invaded Georgia. Yes, those Mongols, those ones that basically conquered all of Asia, and they actually took over a lot of the They took over a lot of the western Georgia, and so what ended up happening is it split in two, with eastern Georgia still independently ruling as the Kingdom of Georgia, and western Georgia ruling over the small little province called Imereti. We'll get to that later. And this branch I'm not going to really get into too much. I show a couple of monarchs here, but then I just have an arrow right here talking about the kings of Imereti, because those aren't really important to the story of the actual Kingdom of Georgia. And this was kind of ruled as an administrative district of the Mongol Empire for a while. And yeah, but we're going to keep going for this person right here, this king, David VII. And he had a son, Demetrius II, and he ended up having 3 children, those being David VIII, Vakhtang III, and Georgi V, known as the Brilliant. Some pretty good epithets in this family tree so far. David had a son, Georgi, who didn't rule for long before the crown being usurped again by Georgi V for a long time. And then the line passed through him to his son David the Ninth, to his son Bagrat the Fifth, to his two sons Constantine the First and Georgie the Seventh. Now, Constantine was important because he was one of the last rulers of the fully unified Georgia, because what ended up happening is he had two sons, those being Alexander the First, known as the Great, and Georgie, right here, who ended up being a co-ruler with his father for a little while. And what ended up happening is Georgia ended up becoming a triarchy, meaning they split up into three different distinct kingdoms within Georgia, those being the kingdoms of Kartli, the kingdoms of Kakheti, and the kingdoms of Imereti right here. And both Kartli and Kakheti went through Alexander's sons, and the kingdom of Imereti passed through Georgie's son, Bagrat the Sixth, / the Second, because he actually ruled over Kartli for some time as well. And so we're going to be going through each of these lines separately, and I'm going to be showing you what happened to each of these lines. So we're going to be starting with the kingdom of Kartli. Now, the first person to rule over Kartli was right here, Constantine the Second, and he had multiple children right here, and he ended up passing the throne down to his son David the Tenth, and he passed it to his brother right here, Georgie the Ninth. Now he also had another son named Bagrat the First, and he founded a brand new house, which we're not going to go into too much detail in right here, but ended up leading to the rest of the house of Kartli, eventually called the House of Mukrani, and here I show a couple of its rulers. And so this line passed through David the Tenth's son, Luarsab the First. He had two children right here who became ruler, Simon the First and David the 11th, and they both had multiple children who ended up ruling over Kartli. And finally, Georgie the Tenth had a son named Luarsab the Second, but after his death, they passed it to Bagrat the Seventh, and then right here, Rostam. And then what ended up happening was there weren't any more heirs on this side of the tree, so they looked to the descendants in the house of Mukrani right here, and they got this guy, Vakhtang the Fifth, to take over, and he became the ruler of Kartli for a short while. And he had multiple kids, including this guy, Arshil, Georgie the 11th, and Levon, who ended up becoming a regent for a little while. Now, Archil I want to get into a little bit more in detail because, yeah, I had to make his little info box, you could call it, really big, and the reason why is because he ruled on, I believe, 6 different occasions, 5 different times in Imereti, which is one of the other kingdoms that we'll talk about, and he also ruled for a time in Kakheti. And so I find that really interesting. He ruled 5 different times then, and 1 time in Kakheti. And that's a crazy number of times. Very similar to Moldovan Monarchs family tree, if you haven't seen that, because plenty of cousins and siblings usurping each other in this fight for power. And it's kind of similar. Now, the line ended up passing through Levon's son, right here, named Kaya Khosrow, right here, before passing it back to someone else. And after that, he passed it to his brother Yesi, who passed it to Vakhtang the Sixth, known as the scholar and the lawgiver. And then after that, once again, a problem arose. And so what ended up happening is, what's not mentioned on this tree, is that there ended up being a couple marriages between some of these people in the family. And what ended up happening is that people in the line of Kakheti ended up inheriting also the throne of Kartli. And we'll see what happens there when we get into into the rulers of Kakheti. Now, The first ruler right there is Georgie the Eighth, right here, and he passed it on to his son Alexander the First, who passed it on to Georgie the Second, known as the Evil. Gee, I wonder why he got that epithet, before passing it on to his son Leon, or also known as Levon, before passing it to his son Alexander the Second, and then passing it to his two sons Constantine the First and David the First right here. And now after that, David the First's son Timoraz the first, right here, ended up actually inheriting the throne of Kartli right here, and so he became the king of both Kakheti and Kartli, and we'll see what happens in that case. His son ended up becoming a ruler of that aforementioned house of Mukrani right here, and his son, once again, was a ruler, Erekli the First, which I believe is a version of Heraclius, pretty cool name. And he had a couple sons. Two of them were only king of Kakheti, but then he passed it to his son Timoraz II, who was king of both Kakheti and Kartli again. And then what ended up happening in 1762 is they decided to actually merge Kakheti and Kartli together to form the new Kingdom of Kartli Kakheti, which lasted up until 1801, and so we had a couple monarchs in that, being Erekli II, and then Georgie the 12th, and then finally his son David ruled as a regent for the last year of his existence, and by 1801 the kingdom of Kartli Kakheti ended up getting annexed by Russia, unfortunately, bringing an end to both of those kingdoms. But now we're going to get in depth on the kingdom of Imereti, the only one we haven't talked about so far. So the first king of Imereti was this guy, Bagrat the Sixth, and he continued in the father to son tradition, passing it to his son, Alexander II, him passing it to his son, Bagrat III, and then passing it to his son, Georgie II, and finally to his son, Levon, right here. Now, he had no children, and so it ended up passing through his uncle Constantine, right here, to his sibling Rostam, right here, to his son Rostam, right here, and then to his brother Georgie III, also for a short while passing through their cousin Bagrat IV. Now the line continued through Georgie III down to Alexander III, to Bagrat V, to Alexander IV. He had two children who got the throne. Simon, firstly, who only ruled for 2 years, and then secondly, Georgie VII, who ruled once again on multiple different occasions. On 4 different occasions, he ended up ruling over Imereti. He had multiple children. He had Alexander V, right here, who ruled on 3 different occasions. He had another son, Mamuka, who was eventually set up as a rival to Alexander V, and he also had Georgie IX, who ruled for a short period of time, in the middle of Alexander V's reign as well. Now, Mamuka had a son named Timoraz, who ended up ruling for a couple years before being deposed again, and Georgie IX also had a son named David II, who ruled a couple times as well. But the main line passed back through Alexander V down to his son Solomon I, also known as the Great, right here, and he was really kind of the last semi-powerful ruler of Georgia, and it passed through his deceased brother to his son, right here, Solomon II, and Solomon II would leave no heirs, and eventually the kingdom of Imereti was annexed by Russia as well in 1810. Now, the heir apparent to the throne, who would have taken the throne, had it not been annexed, was this guy Constantine, right here. But anyways, that really kind of finishes off this video, and if you want to link to this chart, then you can actually find it in the description of this video if you want to download a PDF of this chart. I've been trying to do that recently, so you guys can get a free copy. Because, I mean, I like providing this kind of free stuff, because even though I put in a lot of effort into this, I want you guys to learn some stuff as well. And I certainly did while working on this project. So, thank you guys for watching this video. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you want. We're almost at 50 subscribers, so please get us there. That would be really greatly appreciated. We're at 43 right now, I believe. So if you could get me to 50 subscribers, I'm definitely going to do something very special for that. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys all later. Bye.